Hello everyone, thank you for joining me, and welcome to the art part with Miss Colleen. Today we are going to be continuing our exploration of the art element known as value. Today we're going to be working in grayscale, which is a term you might have heard before. It's where we use only the colors from white to black and all the grays in between. So I personally am going to be using my black crayon. You can use a pencil if you would like, and you just need a piece of paper. One of the ways that value can be used in artwork is to draw the viewer's attention to a certain area or object or subject or person or something along those lines. So for this exercise, we're going to be practicing that a little bit. You're going to be choosing 3 places in your artwork to draw your audience's eye to look at it. One thing would be an object or perhaps an animal or a person, something along those lines. A subject in your artwork. Another thing, let's do some kind of a light source, whether it's a light bulb or a candle or maybe a fire or a star or something along those lines. Some kind of light source. And our third thing can be anything you want, as long as it is going to be one of the places that we are drawing the eye of the viewer. The way that we're going to be drawing the viewer's eye to each of these 3 things is we are going to make them the lightest area in our artwork. So imagine your piece of art, what you might like to draw your viewer's eye to in your artwork. Where are those 3 things going to exist in this space? Start to imagine what you might like to include, where it might go, and how you are going to make that the lightest area, the 3 lightest areas of your artwork. Everywhere else in the artwork will be darker in value than those 3 areas. So start thinking about that. Start imagining what that might look like for you. I think for me, I'm going to do an outdoor scene. I think I'll do a street. I think for me, my 3 objects, I'm going to do an animal and a street light and maybe something in the sky for my 3rd thing, or maybe a car. I'm not sure yet. Maybe a car in the sky. We'll see. But I'm going to start out by drawing my subject. I think I'll put it right around here. I think I'll make a little cat. Now I want to make this one of the lightest areas, so I'm not going to press very hard with my crayon because I want this to be a light value. And I can go back and make it darker later if I find that it's still able to be one of the lighter areas. I'm going to make just a little light gray, maybe a little bit of white on this kitty here. You can choose anything you want for your subject. Could be an animal, could be an object, could be maybe a part of a room, maybe a bookshelf or the floor. Maybe there's a cafe. There's a painting I've seen where one of the brightest areas in this painting is the tables and chairs of an outdoor cafe. And it draws your eye right over there. So for me, I'm just going to make this little light gray cat. Give it a couple of little paws. So hopefully you're having some ideas about what you can include in your artwork for your lightest areas. some light value. There we go. So now I want the area around this cat to still be pretty light. So I think I'm gonna put my cat right under a street light. And I'm just going to, maybe I'll put the light right up here. So I'm just using my black crayon this time. I'm not gonna add any of my other colors because I really want to get a sense of how I can use value with just grayscale. So I can really practice different values. Still going really light with my street light here. And maybe I'll make that a little bit darker because it's more the area that I want to make bright. But we'll see. I know I can make things darker later. I can't make things lighter later. So I'm going to start off really light. And maybe I'll come back later. Get darker. I actually can make that taller. There we go, got a little street light going on. Now I think I will outline the light that falls on my cat. There we go. And now where's the rest of this street? I think I'll make the street come in here so the kitty's sitting on the sidewalk. Maybe the street comes in, maybe from an angle like this. And I'll make a little curb here. Go like that. And maybe there's a few sidewalk cracks. Kitty just sitting on the street. Now all of the area that is not in the light, not around the kitty, and I think my third thing is going to be a moon up here because this feels like sort of a lonely scene with this kitty, and I think the moon will make it feel either a little bit more lonely or maybe like the kitty has one friend, and that's the moon. Depends on how you look at it. And that's one of the fundamental things about art. So I got my moon up there. Haven't really done much perspective on this sidewalk, but that's okay. I think maybe this is a hill. You know, I didn't plan out my artwork very carefully, but that's okay. I just wanted to start making something this time. So I'm going to say this is a hill, and the sidewalk goes over the hill. Something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just trying to explore how I can use value. Maybe I'll put a cloud up here in the sky. A couple of clouds. That's my favorite way to make clouds. Make them flat on the bottom and fluffy on the top. Just one type of cloud. And maybe there's a building over here. I think there's a building here. Maybe it's a tall building. And maybe there's another one just over that side of the hill. Put a big, tall door here. Double doors. So hopefully you are finding some interesting ways to create some different areas in your artwork. Some areas that are going to be dark, some areas that are going to be light. Just 3 light areas. Big sign right there. But I'm not going to put a lot of detail into a lot of these other areas because they're going to be mostly dark. If I put a lot of detail, it might distract from the areas that I really want to draw my viewers' attention to. And in this case, that's my kitty, my street light, and my moon. So I might be about ready to start darkening in some of these areas. Make a little pathway to the... Well, I don't know why they put, you know, when they were planning this area, I don't know why they put a street lamp right in front of the building, but, you know, that's just how it goes sometimes. Maybe I'll put one more cloud right over here, but again, that cloud's going to be pretty dark when I'm all done. Now is when this is why I'm using my black crayon this time, because I can get some of these areas very dark. I think I'm going to start with the sky. A nice dark night sky. Maybe I'll put a teeny tiny little star over here, but I don't want it to be too big because I don't want to distract from my light areas, my specifically focused areas. I'm just going to start coloring in my sky. Remember, you can always go back and make it darker. You start lighter, get darker later. I'm also going to color in these clouds, but I think I'll wait until after I've done most of the sky. If I leave the clouds white, like they are in the daytime, for one thing, it might be a little confusing because we don't always see clouds as white at the nighttime. But for another thing, it'll be a lot of different light areas if I leave all these clouds white. And all those white areas might distract from the areas that I really want people to pay attention to. So for this, I'm just focusing on a few key subjects. And everything else will be a darker value. I know I want my night sky to be nice and dark. Probably going to want my street to be nice and dark. Might add a couple of slightly lighter lane lines on my street. We'll see. And this also gives me a chance to try some different levels, levels of darkness, different values, different darker values, because if I color everything in black, then you won't be able to tell what anything is. You won't be able to see anything. And that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about using darker values to show where the attention is not, and lighter values to show where the attention is. So I'm going to make the sky nice and dark, but there are some other areas that I won't make quite as dark, but I'll still make them pretty dark. I'm trying to go around my star, but it's a very tiny star. Might get lost, and that's okay. It's okay because it's not one of the things that I'm trying to draw the viewer's attention to. Alright, I'm going to go a little bit darker over here and a little bit higher on the page. And like I said, you can always go back and make things darker. Pressing down pretty hard now to get that nice dark value. Oh, there we go. Alrighty. And maybe I'll come back in to fill in some of these areas. I think for now, I'm going to go a little bit darker on these clouds so that they're not the focus, so that they're not distracting. And maybe I'll darken those up a little bit later. Give them a little bit of shading. I think next, I'm going to do my street here. I'm gonna make some lane lines so that you can tell it's a street. Coming down like that. Perspective in this drawing is pretty crazy, but I kind of like it. It's kind of fun. So now I'm going to color in my street. I know I'm going to want it to be darker than my cat, my street light, and my moon. So I'm going to start out like this, and maybe I'll go a little bit darker later. One important tip that I will tell you when you are playing with value like this is you can balance your value when you consider the other areas of your artwork. For example, I don't know exactly how dark I want this street to be, but if I start to color in the values of my other areas, I'll be able to see if I want to make this street area darker. So with crayons, start light, you can always go darker. I'll leave that like that for now. I think I'll color in my curb. Maybe a little bit darker on that one. You just figure it out as you go along. That's how we're doing our exploration today. I think I'm gonna make this street light itself pretty dark so that you'll be able to see it when I color in the back. And also, it's okay if it's not the focus, because I've decided that I'm not really trying to draw attention to the pole or the base or any of that. I really want to draw attention to the light and the cat and the moon. Maybe in your drawing you want to draw attention to the pole. Maybe there's something you find interesting about the pole. That's okay, it's your drawing. You know, sometimes when you When you color a lot with one crayon, it gets a little hard to know where the point is, and that's okay. It might make the drawing a little bit messy. Sometimes you miss. But that's okay. I think I'll keep the top dark, and then I'll have this bottom area a little bit lighter on my street light. All right, now, one other thing that you can use value for, and we might do a little bit more exploration of this in a later video, especially maybe when we're exploring space, is that in artwork you can achieve a depth effect by keeping the things in the back light and the things in the front dark. That's not necessarily always the case in every piece of artwork, but it can be a helpful strategy. So I'm going to keep this a little bit light, not as light as my main three focuses, but I'm going to make it a little bit lighter than the things in the foreground. In the foreground, if you don't know what that means, it just means the things that are closer to the viewer. And maybe I'll go back and darken that up. We'll see. I'm going to say this is a grass area, so maybe I'm going to color it like grass. If you've seen me color grass before, I like to do it in sort of a up and down texture. But I am going to probably want to go back and make that pretty dark. Now, with my light, I want it to be very light because it's one of my three main focuses in my artwork. But I might add a little bit of texture behind where the light falls. For example, on this building or on the grass, but I'm going to want that to be very, 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 very light. In fact, if you're using your black crayon and you want to go super duper light, you could even start using your pencil and do what they call mixed media. You have the medium of crayons and the medium of graphite pencils. You could do a mixed media artwork where you use a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. This all depends on what you want in your artwork. There we go. Now you can still tell that this is a street lamp, but see, it's kind of camouflaged with the dark color of the grass behind it. And I kind of like that because it makes it so that you can tell what it is, but you don't have to give it your full attention. There are other areas that you want to give your full attention. So now if I look at this, I still see that there's a lot of light areas that make it so that my attention isn't really drawn to my light, to my cat, or to my moon, because I still have this big white area on the building, a little bit on this walkway, and especially on the sidewalk here. So, and you know what, actually, my attention is drawn over here to the lane lines because I didn't color them in either. So I think I'm gonna do that. And maybe I'll make the street a little bit darker too. But for now, I'm going to start on this building. Now, I really don't feel a need to make this particularly detailed because I don't think anybody's really going to be looking at it. And I don't particularly need anybody to look at it either. So I'm just going to start coloring it in. Maybe I'll do the sign or the windows or the doors a little bit lighter or darker in value. But I'm not going to worry about it too much. Just want it to be pretty dark. I have something underneath there, so it looks weird. But that's okay. I'm gonna make the doors a little bit darker, I think. I'm probably going to darken up this building a little bit too. And maybe the windows. Something like that. Something like that. And this sign. You could write something on your sign if you're doing something similar to me. But I don't really want it to be distracting. Then again, if it's in the dark, it probably won't be very distracting. So now this is where the challenge comes in of trying to create different dark values. Not just different values, but different dark values. Because I want it to, I don't want everything to just blend in all together. You don't really know where you are. You don't really know what's happening in the artwork. So I want to create some different dark values. Go, my little walkway. But again, it really helps to have most of your artwork kind of shaded. Most of your artwork has some sort of darker value on it, some sort of value, so that you can decide what you want to make darker and what you think is about the right value. I'm going to color around my light because that's one of my areas that I want the viewer to recognize. I want the viewer to look at. And a little bit there, outside of the light. Now, my eye is definitely drawn to this street light area because it is the only white spot except for my moon. I think if I wanted my moon to stand out more, I would have to make the sky a little bit darker. I think I definitely want to make my street a little bit darker because it sort of looks like a very similar value to everything on the ground here. I think my building looks to be a pretty good value. And I think I might add a little bit of texture back here to make it clear that it's still grass, but I really, really want to keep it light so that my attention is still drawn to this street light. Maybe a little bit. This is where I'm going to mix media. Use my pencil very, very lightly back here. So I still get that building, because if I'm looking at light, I'm looking through light. But that's just one option. You could, if you have a light source, or you should have a light source, you could leave the light that's coming out of your light source just plain white paper. It's up to you. I think I'm going to do that to just make it seem like that is a little bit see-through. I think if I'm going to darken my clouds a little bit so they're really not distracting. I'm going to darken my whole street here. pressing down a little bit. You'll darken that curb a little bit too. So it's got a bit of a shadow on it. You know what? I think I'm going to create a little bit of shadow on the areas that are farther away from this light. So maybe, since I really want the attention to be on where the light is, I'm gonna darken the parts that are farther away from the light. It's something you can choose to do in your artwork if you'd like to. So that I have the attention even more right here on that light source. And make it a little bit curved, since that light is a little bit curved. There we go. Maybe I'll do that a little bit on the street too. Oops. And I'm coloring right over those lane markings that I made, but that's okay with me because I don't feel like anybody really needs to notice them, because if I have them, you can still see those visible rectangles. So you still know it's a street. You still get that idea that it's a street, but you don't have to look right at them. You don't have your attention pulled over there. And maybe a little bit darker in the sky up here. And I think that has the effect that I'm looking for. Because in this drawing, I can tell just by looking at it, this is the area that I want to look at the most. The lightest area in my artwork. It's right here. I know that that is the subject. That is what's happening. That's where the story is centered. In this light on this kitty with that lonely moon or that friendly moon. So I hope this has given you a bit of an exploration of how you can use different monochrome values. That's what we call it when we're only using one color, or if we're just using grayscale like we have here. This is one way that you can use value to draw your viewers' attention to wherever the story is in your artwork, whatever you want to represent, wherever you want their attention to go. Thank you for joining me as always, and remember to keep creating and keep sharing. I'll see you next time.